Hey guys, it's me again. Today I'm going to be launching a brand new series to my channel called Cancel. We'll be taking a look at video games and movies, among other things, particularly cancelled media, the video games and the movies that didn't make it. Whether it was something that was just an idea, or it didn't get off the drawing board, was cancelled midway through development, moved to another platform, took a long time to make, or was nearly ready for release and pulled at the last minute. This pilot episode will be taking a look at one of the most famous cancelled video games, Sonic X-Treme, originally to be released on the Sega Saturn. Let's get into it. Sonic X-Treme is among the most well-known examples of a cancelled video game that was going to be released in December 1996 on the Sega Saturn. It would have been the first 3D Sonic platformer and was developed by Sega Technical Institute, the elite Sega development team in North America, using an entirely Western team. The studio was created after the release of Sonic 1 and combined the minds of the Japanese Sonic team and American developers to make Sonic titles. They were responsible for producing Sonic 2, Sonic 3 Knuckles, and Sonic Spinball. STI became an all-American developer after the release of Sonic 3 as the Japanese developers moved out of America. Xtreme initially started development shortly after the release of Sonic 3 Knuckles. Initially planned for the Mega Drive, the game was quickly moved to the 32X, the add-on for the Mega Drive. The game was originally titled Sonic Mars, and was a fully 3D platform game, which would incorporate elements from the SatAM series. Sally Acorn and Bunny Rabbit were originally supposed to be in the game. There was meant to be a new character introduced in the game, called Tiara Babescu, created as a female version of Sonic and a character that girls could look up to. Due to the cancellation of the SatAM cartoon and the failure at the 32X, the development of Sonic Mars was moved over to the Saturn. The game was substantially reworked in its Saturn incarnation. The SatAM characters were dropped, but Tiara was kept. The development team consisted of lead programmer Don Goddard, producer Michael Kozaka, and artist Chris Sen, among others. At some point in 1995, Kozaka quit Sega and was replaced by Mike Wallace, and Goddard was replaced with Ofer Alon, who some staff felt was difficult to work with, saying he did not share his work. By early 1996, development was well underway with the game running off two separate engines. The main engine, developed by Chris Sen and Ofer Alon, was a fisheye lens styled game, which would be used for the main levels. According to Wallace, the theme of the game was to take basic 2D Sonic and add the ability to have him go into and out of the screen. On paper that sounded great, but when we actually started to implement it, the addition created some design challenges we didn't initially account for. The engine was developed with Windows in mind. Converting to the Saturn hardware was a major challenge, as Alon couldn't get his own engine, developed in Windows, to run fast enough on the Saturn. The game would run on 3 to 4 FPS, with 4 colours, and crashed often at times. The conversion was outsourced to Point of View Studio, who continued technical development of the game, porting an older version of the engine to the Saturn, but encountering the same problems that Sen and Alon encountered. Both Alon and Sen were eventually kicked off the project altogether. POV became the main developers, and to demonstrate to Ofer and Sen the reason for the drastic action, technical director Robert Morgan showed them a demo created by Point of View. Sen recalled, "They showed us the Sonic sprite we were already using, floating in the upper right of the screen, a checkerboard ground, a rotating shaded polygonal shape floating in the air, and maybe a spring sprite animating. For all that we had created, to throw that all away for such nonsense. Amazing." After seeing this, Alon and Sen separated from POV and continued developing Sonic X-Treme as a PC game. The boss engine, developed by Chris Coughlin, was intended to be used for the game's boss fights. The engine used tools developed by Saturn games, such as Panzer Dragoon 2, and rendered bosses as fully polygonal characters. Bosses in the game would have included Fang the Sniper and Metal Sonic. The game's original plans would feature 4 playable characters. The characters planned were Knuckles, Tiara, Tails, and Sonic. Each character would have had their own unique gameplay style. Knuckles and Tiara would have the most traditional playstyle, having top-down and side-scrolling views respectively. Sonic, most notably, had the fisheye style levels, and Tails would play in first-person flight mode. The levels included Jade Gully Zone, a level modelled after Green Hill Zone, Crystal Frost Zone, Red Sand Zone, Galaxy Fortress Zone, Metal Blade Zone, Death Egg Zone, and Candy Mountain. Production went well in the game, until a visit from Sega CEO Hayao Nakamura. When evaluating the game, he was reportedly unhappy with the quality of the main engine, single-handedly pointing out the game's slow frame rate on the Saturn version. However, Nakayama was impressed with the boss engine, and requested that Sonic X-Treme be completely rebuilt around the game. This would give the Sonic X-Treme team just 9 months to totally rework the game. Bernie Stolar approached the game's development team and asked what he could do to help the game meet its deadline. At the team's request, the source code for the Nights into Dreams engine was provided to allow them to convert the game into that engine. It was the thing that it needed. But under a month later, back in Japan, Yuji Naka was made aware of STI's use of the Nights engine. He threatened to leave Sega if his engine continued to be used by the Xtreme developers, forcing Sega of America executives to tell the development team to stop using the engine. This cost 2 weeks of development time. The team found themselves just 8 months away from their deadline. Wallace isolated the Sonic X-Treme team to a separate office. With the small 10-man team under intense pressure, 16 to 20-hour days became the norm. Coffin moved into the office so he could work 20-hour days. I went to the exec producer and VP and told them the only way we had any semblance of hoping to finish this game by Christmas was to give me the reins, get rid of the political crap, isolate a core team, and give us the tools necessary to get the job done. Sega of America STI management agreed, and we pulled together a core group of 4 artists, 2 programmers plus 1 contractor, and 3 designers into the old STI location, and we get to work. Wallace recalled. Sen and Alon were already previously kicked off the project by this point. However, they would continue developing the engine as a PC game. The rush to get the game finished in 9 months took its toll on the team. 4 months into development, Coffin would develop a severe case of pneumonia. Sen became so ill that on the doctor visit, he was told he only had 6 months to live. Coffin actually left his apartment, cancelling its lease, moved all his belongings into the office, and worked day and night, Wallace recalled. The guy was a human dynamo. He literally worked himself into the ground, which was unfortunate, because without Coffin, the project had 0 chance of being released in time for Christmas. In spite of the drama occurring behind the scenes, a playable demo was revealed at E3 1996. By this point, with the lead developer out of action, it was determined development of Xtreme would miss the Christmas deadline, and ultimately would no longer continue. By the end of August 1996, the Xtreme project was officially cancelled. Initially announced as delayed, in early 1997, this cancellation was made official to the public. With no Sonic game being released on the Saturn for Christmas, Sega tried to act fast, and quickly cooked up a port of Sonic 3D Blast for the system, which would later become the second highest selling game on the Saturn. However, in the long run this would end up doing little for the Saturn. More on that later. As a tie-in to Xtreme, Sega also had signed a deal with MGM to produce a Sonic the Hedgehog movie that would integrate Xtreme into its plot. The deal with MGM ultimately fell through in early 1996, and attempts to pitch it to DreamWorks failed, but the story of that will be saved for another time. It is often considered that Xtreme's cancellation was a crucial element towards the Saturn's failure. Why? The summer 1996 holiday season was crunch time for Sega. This time was the crucial time for the 5th generation of gaming consoles. People were transitioning from the Mega Drive and Super Nintendo. The big 3 game console makers saw this and scheduled big games for release in the holiday season. Sega's competitors had scheduled the release of its major family-oriented platformers in this window, Sony with Crash Bandicoot and Nintendo with Super Mario 64. Sonic X-Treme was meant to be this game for the Saturn, but its cancellation meant there was no big game which was going to be released on the Saturn. Instead, consumers bought PS1s and N64s, so they could play games like Mario 64 or Crash. For this reason, Xtreme's cancellation is considered to be a major factor into why the Saturn failed as a whole. With no original Sonic platform being released for the system at a time when Sonic was at the peak of his popularity, the Saturn was bound to fail. It is often discussed if Sega's fortunes would have been turned around had Xtreme been released. IGN's Travis Fass called Xtreme the turning point not only for Sega's mascot and their 32-bit console, but for the entire company, but noted that the game served as an empty vessel for Sega's ambitions and the hope of their fans. David Horton of Games Radar compared Xtreme's release on the Saturn to be a what-if situation on par with the dinosaurs not becoming extinct. Wallace, in retrospect, maintained that Xtreme definitely would have been competitive with Nintendo Super Mario 64 had it been released. Despite the game being cancelled over 20 years ago, a huge amount of material for Xtreme has surfaced online since release. We know this much about the game due to the efforts of ex-STI members and leakers in helping preserve the game as a concept. Sonic X-Treme is generally considered to be one of the most well-documented cancelled games known to exist. Heaps of the material can be easily accessible around the internet, such as this. A filmed video of the 1996 E3 demo and trailer were released online at some point. It can be featured on this video. A higher quality version of the E3 demo was also eventually released later on. In 1999, the vast majority of the sprites that were going to be used for Sonic and the other characters were released online. In 2005, an anonymous collector acquired a disc holding a prototype version of Xtreme early in its conversion to the Boss engine. This test version of the game was leaked in July 2007 and can still easily be found online. In early January 2006, Sen opened a forum based on the game on his own message board and began revealing large amounts of the game's development history to the public, including videos of early prototypes, a mock-up of Tiara's gameplay, concept art of Tiara, and more. Furthermore, he posted a large amount of previously unreleased concept music composed by Howard Drossen, and posted level designs that were going to be put in the game. This gives us numerous original soundtrack pieces composed for the game, and many different pieces of concept art that wouldn't even be normally seen for some release games. The Sonic Boom level editor, which was a Lon & Sen's engine reworked by POV, was leaked in November 2014. A member from Assembler Games called Jolly Roger found material from Point of View Studio, which included some unreleased betas for their games. In the material, there were two prototypes of Sonic X-Treme. One of these was the working continuation of POV's broken effort to port Sen and Alon's engine. The prototypes required an NVIDIA NV1 video card and Windows 95 to work, and eventually the game was converted to run on modern computers. Many of the game's levels can be found in this leaked beta, which is easily available online and can be run both on a PC or on a Saturn emulator. The release of this engine gave new evidence that POV made their own engine, using Alon's engine as a base, with a completely different source code. And that is all the game-related material that has been released online as of August 2019. But there's another thing I wanted to say. Unbelievably, despite the game being cancelled, there is actually merchandise of the game. There's a cassette player, a radio, a few pin badges, and other random knickknacks related to the game which have images online. Inexplicably, much of this merchandise comes from Australia. Sonic X-Treme merchandise is very rare to come by due to its nature as merchandise for a cancelled game. But it still is interesting that actual cancelled merchandise for a cancelled game can be found in the wild to this day. Well, that's everything I wanted to look at this video. Sonic X-Treme is an interesting cancelled game that cements its place in history due to its unique situation and how it could have turned the fortunes of an entire company around had it not been cancelled. This is me, signing out. Have a good one. Hey guys, thanks for watching this video all the way to the end. If you're new to this channel and missed out on the last video, check out the previous video here. If you like my content and want to see more, like, comment and press the subscribe button down below, and hit the bell notification so you never miss a video. I also have a Twitter and Twitch channel, If you'd like to check them out, the links to them are in the description.